All right, welcome into Pod to Win the Game. I am Charles Robinson here with Frank Schwab. And, Frank, something dawned on me tonight as I watched the Los Angeles Chargers score with 1:50 left. Everyone's overjoyed. Oh, Kansas City's got to drive for a touchdown to win the game. Everybody watching thought the same exact thing. 1:50 is way too much time. Like, it's not even, it could have been half of that, and people probably would have been nervous. Pat Mahomes drives the Chiefs along with Travis Kelce down the field. They score, they win Sunday Night Football, 30-27. And I watch as Twitter erupts into this. Oh, that was all Kelce. It's not Mahomes. Here comes the Mahomes hype. Mahomes gets bailed out by the refs again on what was obviously a hold by Derwin James. People can say whatever they want, but when you stick your fist down the front neck hole of somebody's pads, you're going to get called for it, especially when it's in the last 2 minutes of a game. I realized something. Patrick Mahomes is going to be Tom Brady when Tom Brady leaves, but I don't mean that statistically. I don't mean that from the GOAT standpoint. I mean the next person that the league, every other fan base hates and can't stand and talk shit about is going to be Patrick Mahomes. That's what's going to happen.
And why do we need to do this? Why can't we just appreciate Patrick Mahomes? I've been noticing it the past, it probably goes back a little bit to last year where everybody was so quick to be like, Josh Allen, he's really the best quarterback in the league. Look at how far he can throw the ball. Look at his running. It's never been anyone but Mahomes. It's almost like Giannis in the NBA where, Jokic is winning MVP awards. He's great, but we all know Giannis is the best player in the world. Yeah, Rodgers was winning MVPs, but nobody would pick Rodgers ahead of Mahomes. Nobody should have ever picked Josh Allen ahead of Mahomes. Justin Herbert has a long way to go before he's in Mahomes' class. Patrick Mahomes is the best player in football. He's the most impactful. He's the most valuable. He's going to win MVP unless he gets hurt. I think the race is over. Nobody else needs to apply right now. Jalen Hurts was very, very good today, but it's over. Patrick Mahomes is your MVP. The Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl contenders because they have Patrick Mahomes, and I don't get why we have to tear this down. People enjoyed Jordan's career, right? He was winning forever and all this kind of stuff. But we've reached a social media age where you're right. All of a sudden, people are turning on Patrick Mahomes, who, by all accounts, is a very likable guy. He's one of those rare superstars who it's hard to dislike him. But yet, because he's winning a lot, we need to fight. Oh, the refs bailed him out. The refs didn't bail him out. Or it was all Kelce. Yeah, it's just a coincidence that all of Patrick Mahomes' receivers happen to catch the ball in the exact right place where they can go get a ton of yak and turn it upfield and score touchdowns. Right. It's just, Kelce's great. Don't get me wrong. Kelce's awesome. Andy Reid is awesome. Tyreek Hill was awesome. But Patrick Mahomes is that guy. He's driving this bus. He's the reason the Chiefs are great. And you're right. I picked the Chargers. I even tweeted out, moneyline bet on the Chargers looks good tonight. They scored, and for 3 seconds I was happy, and then I was like, nah, there's no way they're going to win this. None. You just knew, no, Mahomes is going to bring them down. They're going to win somehow, and he does it because he's the best player in football. He's your 2022 NFL MVP, and he's the reason the Kansas City Chiefs have another shot at a Super Bowl title.
I think people just get tired of dominance quickly now. I really do. And
yeah. Why do you think that is? I don't get it.
Because we're oversaturated.
I don't remember it ever being this way. People love Montana. People love Jordan.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
But the thing was, we weren't constantly saturated with here's Michael Jordan's wife on TikTok, or here's Michael Jordan's brother on TikTok, or here's Joe Montana's this or that, or even the saturation. Then you had to wait usually until the next morning and pick up your newspaper to get saturated with it. Now it's every 1 second, whenever you're refreshing your Twitter or looking on Instagram or whatever else, people just get sick and tired of it. Plus, look, you and we're on this side of the fence in the media, and we know that everything now is about, over the top statements. And
sure.
But at this point with this guy, when he went through his struggles, and the offensive line was breaking down, coming out of the Super Bowl loss to Tampa, and then, flowing into the 2021 season. It was interesting because he showed a mortality and people could not jam it down your throat fast enough. Oh, look. Oh, he doesn't like to get hit. Oh, I'm sorry, no quarterback likes to get hit, okay? Like I watched
Shocking.
a fat guy fall on Josh Allen. He didn't like it either, okay? Like it wasn't like that's completely ridiculous. And this idea that, well, when this quarterback forces it into double coverage, what's that throw? And he's in it. But when Pat Mahomes does it, he's a wizard. And I'm like, dude, just good God, like dial it back, man. Why don't you just literally stop and appreciate what he's been able to accomplish up until this point? And I don't know, man. People just lose their minds, and to see it happen tonight, kind of in real time, and really pay attention to how pissed off people were. When look, you can say whatever you want. Everyone wants to bitch about officiating as soon as it costs their team something.
Right.
In that little microcosm of the moment, is there a question about whether or not Derwin James is holding? No. But, you get people who are like, well, actually, Kelce was holding too. I'm like, Kelce's running a route. A receiver who's running a route is not holding on to a defender. He can hold on to the defender if the defender's going through for an interception. Like he can, just because there's physical contact, Kelce wasn't pulling Derwin James into him and making him grab onto the front of his pad. It was what it was. Just eat it. It happens. Happens to everybody.
Yeah. And by the way, this is going to shock everybody, but great players get more calls. And I'm not talking about Mahomes. I'm talking about Kelce. Like, this has been going on since the beginning of time. Yeah. It's because they're great. They put themselves in position where defenders are trailing, or they have to foul, or they have to hold, or whatever sport you're in. So, that's just ridiculous. The refs did not have anything to do with this. This was a Patrick Mahomes masterpiece. And people for us too, it's not the easiest thing in the world. We're writing, hey, Patrick Mahomes is still great every single week. It's like you can, it's not like it would be awesome if Josh Allen really was that dude who is better than Patrick Mahomes. But you know what? He's not. Patrick Mahomes is the best player on the planet, and he's going to be for a really long time. It's just he's just uncanny at the things he could do, the way he sees things, the way he processes, and then how he can physically execute. Nobody else is on his level, and nobody else through 4+ years of his career. I think we're in year 5 of him starting. Nobody else has been off to this kind of a start. So you say he probably won't get to Brady's level as far as statistics or even Super Bowls or anything. You're probably right, because Brady's a freak who's played till he's 45. But Mahomes has been every bit as great as Brady was in his prime. Mahomes has been every bit as great as any quarterback ever has been in their prime. That's what level he's on. And it's okay to just be like, you know what? Patrick Mahomes is great, and I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah. I hope people get over this, because we don't.
Absolutely.
I don't want to just transition from Brady to the next guy. We just hate him
nonstop. Yeah, I don't either. I never hated Brady either. Like, Brady's had a great career. Sports is more interesting when you just appreciate greatness. Let's move it ahead to our next game here, because this one was, look, I thought the Cowboys were going to win. I did not think the Cowboys were going to beat the Vikings 40-3. Let's just start with the Vikings, because I know we're going to talk about the Cowboys. I don't want to give the Vikings loss, kind of bury this. Is this prove to you that the Vikings are frauds? I don't think so. I think the Vikings are a very good football team. They're just not an 8-1 type of football team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, honestly, unless they just, whatever. Any team get really hot if you're in the playoffs, and they're going to be in the playoffs. I think they're pretty much the same team I thought they were. They're a good team that's not great, and you know what? They're not on Dallas's level.
Go back to week 2, okay? I'm going to repeat what I said week 2. When you start bringing pressure on Kirk Cousins, and I think last week, I think I said, look, I'm not a fan of his feel in the pocket for when pressure's coming. But if you're bringing everything, I do not think he diagnoses it quickly enough or picks. He is a completely different guy when you're sending the house and it's getting home. And I don't mean the entire game. I mean, if you start a game and you're sacking him and you're sending it from all over the place, go back again, look at the Philly game in week 2. I'm like, he can't figure out what to do. Like, he cannot figure out what to do with this pressure, and they cannot scheme to protect him with this pressure and protect him from himself. This is the same game. I looked at it again. I swear to God, I just want people to go back and look at that Philly game and this game, and you see the same guy who's in the pocket, and you're like, this dude has no chance. No chance. By the time they were down 20-0, I'm like, this game's over. Like, there's never going to figure this out. Like, there's just no way. Once they figured out they could get to him and that offensive line looked overwhelmed, I wish for Minnesota, and again, I don't think this stamps them as frauds. I think it stamps them as flawed. Okay, they have a flaw, and we've known, like, Kirk's been an Achilles historically. He's been Achilles historically against the rush, continues to be that. I just wish that Kevin O'Connell could figure out, hey, let's scheme it up in a way, whether it's using Dalvin Cook in a different way or TJ Hawkinson or whatever. Let's go over some more creative hot reads, something to try and combat this, because this is what's going to happen when he gets in. They're going to get to the playoffs and they're going to run into Philly and they're going to run into Dallas, or they're going to run into San Francisco. They're going to run into a team that goes, we can aggressively send it from all over, and he's going to make mistakes or just completely become ineffective.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Kirk is what he is at this point. He's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. I give him a little bit of a pass for this game just because the Cowboys were in his lap every single snap. It was unbelievable. Like, this was every single play was three guys beating linemen without them slowing down. I mean, it was pretty crazy. This is about as dominant of a pass rush as you're going to see in an NFL game. They were just, at one point I tweeted, I think, like, you can tell me the Cowboys have sacked him 25 times and I believe you. Because every time I looked up, Kirk Cousins was just getting hammered by somebody. But yeah, he's not great at, he holds the ball too long. He's a tough guy. He really is. But he holds the ball too long sometimes. Sometimes you just got to get rid of it. And sometimes Kevin O'Connell's got to help him out. You got to protect a little bit better. Yeah.
Throw a screen.
Just got to,
like, Dalvin Cook, I don't think had a single catch. He might have had one catch.
Slow down that rush. It was crazy. It was crazy how good the Cowboys pass rush is. Again, I don't think the Vikings are frauds, and you're going to hear that a lot. Oh, the Vikings are they're not. They're a good football team that's probably just not going to win a Super Bowl this year.
That's it. They're flawed.
They're a flawed team, and they're fine. They're 8-2 football team that's going to win the NFC North. Nobody thought they would be here at this point. They're totally fine. They're just not as good as the top tier. The Cowboys, though, wow. I mean, if you think about it, if the Eagles had lost today, and we'll talk about them. If the Eagles had lost today, all of a sudden we'd be talking right now about, are Cowboys going to win the NFC East out of the Eagles' grasp? I mean, they still might. Like, the season's not over. Cowboys looked fantastic in this game. And look, just because the Vikings lost this game doesn't mean they're frauds. Just because the Cowboys lost last week to the Packers and blew a fourth quarter lead doesn't mean they were bad. Like, this is a very, very good football team that a lot of people gave up on after week one. They've just been winning since then. They've been one of the best teams in football, and I think today showed that.
I'll tell you what, man, they are a scary team. And I know they led by 14 points in Green Bay and they lose in that fourth quarter. But when they get ahead like this, typically, I mean, it's a really scary team because, number one, they don't have to worry about the run defense so much anymore because if you're ahead, you get up by a couple touchdowns. Most teams are not going to continue to try and cram it down your throat because they got to pass to stay in it. But I think defensively, it's one animal. We've talked about defense all year long. We talk about them being the aggression, the turnover mentality, all those things still exist. I think offensively, what was impressive to me is that, you split 30 carries between Zeke and Tony Pollard, which is awesome. Like, that's great. You threw it to Tony, heck of a lot out of the backfield, So it wasn't like you just dominated on forcing it to CeeDee Lamb, forcing it to Michael Gallup. Mm-hmm. To be able to factor him into the passing game is such a huge deal. And to me, it showed scheme versatility, offensive versatility. I think if you look at the number of guys who caught balls, it's 10 guys caught passes, or 10 guys. I'm sorry, 10 guys. Yeah, no, it's 10 guys caught passes. I mean, it just feels that offense, when it's balanced and the defense is clicking, really, really scary team. And I would say, since we talked about the Vikings, do I still think there's a flaw for Dallas? Well, if they're in close games with a team that can run it, I don't know. Mm-hmm. We'll see. Can they continue to resolve that? Because I look at Philly. You and I were like, oh, Philly, they can't run. They're like, hey, guess what? We're going to go sign Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh and take these two fat guys and stick them right in the middle of this line. and Jordan Davis is going to come back at some point. They're like, yeah, no, we're not going to sit here and pretend we don't have a potential weakness here. We're going to plug it. And that's what they did.
Yeah. I think on the Cowboys side, one thing that I've mentioned before, does Tony Pollard deserve a bigger piece of the pie? Yes. People go really overboard with this. They act like Ezekiel Elliott should just get no carries. Like Tony Pollard should just get the Derrick Henry workload. Like, I get where people are coming from, that it's frustrating to watch Tony Pollard kind of be a little underused. But we're not talking fantasy football when we're talking about this. We're talking about real life football where Yes, you want to get Tony Pollard involved like you did today, not like early in the year when he was a little underused. But 15 carries for Zeke is totally fine. He still performs a function in this offense. He keeps Pollard fresh so he can have these explosive plays. That play down the sideline, Dak, a great throw to him. Pollard just runs away from the defense. You know what? Maybe that doesn't happen in a month if he's logging 25 carries a game. You know, you're keeping him fresh. You're being smart. Zeke is still a great pass blocker. He's still great around the goal line. He still has a great role. Is he overpaid? Yes. Should Pollard get more than Zeke? Yes. Should Zeke completely go away? No, that's crazy. This is a great duo, and it's part of what makes this Cowboys offense really, really good. I think the Cowboys have a Super Bowl upside. They really do. They're going to have to go the hard way. Unless they catch the Eagles, they're going to have to be a wild card team. They're going to have to win on the road.
Yep.
But there's no reason they can't. When you have a pass rush like that, when you have, like you said, playmakers who are, you can go get turnovers, big plays on defense, and then you have an offense that, if again, as long as they're not playing from behind and they have to get one-dimensional, they can come at you in a number of different ways, whether it's Zeke, whether it's Pollard, whether it's Lamb, all these other kind of complementary receivers. They're a really, really good football team. And honestly, they have been a really good football team since week one, and a lot of people just don't want to admit that.
Yeah, I think that split, honestly. I was like, Pollard had 21 touches, Zeke had 16. I was like, that kind of feels good. Like, that's the wheelhouse.
Fine. Yeah.
You know, I kind of, and by the way, if those two guys are touching a combined total of 36 times in a game, you probably did pretty well in that game. Like,
you're probably winning every one of those games. Yeah, it's a little bit of cause and effect. I know, run to win, win to run. But yes, if they could get it to the point where they don't have to put it all on Dak's shoulders, and those two can combine for 30 carries. Yeah, you're doing really, really well at that point.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of the Eagles, it's a close one. They beat the Indianapolis Colts in Indy 17-16. Late fourth, like last 2 minutes when they finally took the lead in this game. Definitely a game that was a little scarier than I expected. And now I'm starting to wonder. I don't want to get over my skis on this whole thing because you know how it is with the snapshot thing. Couple game, a loss and then kind of another shaky game, and you start to think, wait, are people figuring them out? You look at Jalen Hurts and you're like, okay, well, 18 completions for 190 yards, calling his number a lot in the run game again, which I don't know, man. I know. Just not a fan of Josh Allen doing that, taking it all on his shoulders. Not a fan of even Lamar, it being like, hey, 90% of the offense, the quarterbacks were 90% of the offense runs through them. And some of it is taking, 10, 12 carries a game, 15 carries a game. I think that's problematic. And that's what really scares me about the Eagles. But I will say this. I felt like they tried to address the run issue. Like I said, sign Linval Joseph, right? Sign Ndamukong Suh. Those guys walk in and play. And I felt like for the most part, considering how committed Indy was to running the football, they did a pretty good job. It wasn't like it was I wouldn't look at Indy and say that was an effective run game for the Colts, especially once you got outside of the first touchdown, right? I mean, Jonathan Taylor, after that first drive, they were not nearly as effective running the football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the Eagles, look, it's a long season. You start off 8-0. You're feeling pretty good. Like there's going to be a lull unless you're like the 2007 Patriots who just kind of run over the whole NFL for a full year until a Super Bowl. It doesn't surprise me that the Eagles aren't just going to blow out every team every week. This one was a little weird though. I think it exposed some things. You're right. They can't. Their whole offense can't be Hurts running the ball. When they were really clicking early in the year, A.J. Brown was making big plays. Devontae Smith was a big part of this. Miles Sanders was a big part of this. Their running game has kind of abandoned them outside of Hurts, who's really, really good in that dual threat role. Their running game hasn't been that good. All of a sudden, their line has been kind of shaky a little bit, more than we were used to early in the year. But, whatever. You get the win. You're 9-1. You still feel pretty good about yourself. You probably beat the Commanders if the officials didn't miss an egregious face mask penalty against Dallas Goedert. So I'm not panicked. I don't think this team is going anywhere. I just think, look, they're not great. They're not, going to walk to a Super Bowl. They should never, they should never have been a Super Bowl favorite or anything like that. But they're really good. They could win the NFC, and then you got a shot. But they're going to need to play better than they have the last couple of weeks. I think that starts with the line. I think that starts with getting people other than Jalen Hurts involved. Like you said, the run defense, for them to shore that up. I watched the first drive, and I'm like, Jonathan Taylor's going to run for 150 yards in this game. Like, oh my goodness, the Eagles can't stop anybody. And they really stopped it after that. And I was impressed with that. Their defense came up with some big plays. They got it done when they had to. And this is the kind of win, look, it's hard to win on the road in the NFL. It's hard to beat anybody in the NFL. We've seen so many teams this year lose games they had no business losing. So the fact that Philly could pull it together for one drive, and even, look, it was 3rd and goal from like the 7-yard line when Jalen Hurts scored. There was no guarantee they were going to win right there. I give them a lot of credit for being tough mentally, getting the win, getting out of there. But yes, there's some things they have to clean up. I think that's getting pretty clear.
They're going to run into a Packers team, too, on Sunday Night Football next week. That's feeling good. Packers are kind of, for the most part, obviously, look, they're not coming off a win, but it's not the crushed soul Packers team that it was earlier in the season, right? It wasn't like, at the very least, the Packers are sitting there going, look, man, we definitely found something in Christian Watson. This feels now like it's a Packers team that is, look, do I think that they've got a shot in this? No, I don't. But I think it's still a team that looks like, hey, if we fiddle with this, if we can fix some things now that we've figured out that Christian Watson can catch touchdown passes from Aaron Rodgers, we're going to have an ability to be competitive in games moving forward. If it was like the crushed soul Green Bay team, and I'm not saying they felt good coming off the loss this week. Clearly, Aaron Rodgers just wanted to get home. He said it. Like, I get all that. But they don't feel dead. And it is a primetime game. And I don't think that's it's a get right game for Philly. Like, they're just running into a crap team. Packers are not the crap team that they were,
Oh no, man.
A month
Packers
ago.
Kind of stink right now.
I don't think they're the crap team they were a month ago.
Team. Look, the Packers got a lot of talent. So yeah, I don't know that the Eagles are necessarily going to just run up a score on them, but I hope the Eagles look a little bit better than they did today. Like, as somebody who was high on the Eagles before the season, felt really good. I'm like,
I'm calling it now. I'm calling it right now. I'm just telling you, next Sunday night's going to be interesting. Now, if they get housed, if the Packers get housed, then I will come on here and I will be like, Frank's got the receipts for this one.
They're bad, man. The Packers are bad. The Packers are really bad this season.
Right.
You know who they're tied with in the NFC North? We'll segue to the Detroit Lions, baby. The Detroit Lions were 31-18 over the New York Giants. For one, let's start with the Giants. The Giants are one of those teams. We all knew that they were very much I don't want to say a fraud, but they were now 7-2 team. Well, like, it showed up today. Barkley didn't get going, and they have no counterpunch. They just don't. Like, I know Daniel Jones ended up with a bunch of yards at the end of the game. Their offense was terrible in this game. But the Lions have really kind of figured things out. Like, what do you make of the Lions at this point, who 3 weeks ago I was like, oh, this team they're going to fire their coach. They're going to go 2-15. They're awful. Well, now they're not awful. All of a sudden their season has kind of turned on a dime.
Well, it helps that Jamal Williams is like literally, you get inside the red zone, you just give him the ball, he's going to end up scoring. That dude's tough.
He got 14?
It's remarkable.
He's up to 14 this season?
Is it 14? I thought he had like 12, but it might be 14.
It's somewhere in there. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It is. If you have him on your fantasy team, you're like, wow, I don't know how this is happening.
Yeah, here's the thing. Go back to the Miami game, right? That's a loss 31-27, right? Which frankly, again, wasn't that close, but even scoreboard scouting, that's still, for what Miami is, like, you're still kind of like, dude, what the hell? Green Bay, Chicago on the road, the Giants on the road. Now, they hadn't won a road game. I think they hadn't run a road game since 2020. Now they've won 2 in a row. They hadn't scored 31 points or more in a game in 5 games since 2013. They're just starting. They haven't stacked 3 wins in a row since 2017. They're starting to do things where you're like, okay, well, that's uncharacteristic for how bad this franchise has been historically. And I go back to watching Robert Saleh hitting you up and saying, I don't know, man, maybe we want to hold off on bailing Dan Campbell just because of the stuff I heard about Saleh and that defense, and they're not responding. And then it clicks and you're like, oh, wow, no, actually just needed some more time. This to me is emblematic of something's different. Like, look, they're scoring points. Remember, Jared Goff is still your quarterback, and Jared Goff did not have a good game. Like, go look at the numbers. It wasn't like he had a good game. Yeah. Still need a quarterback. But you and I were laughing before the show started today because we're like, man, the Rams pick that they sent to Detroit is going to be higher in the draft than Detroit's draft pick. You and I agreed before the season started. I don't know if we did it on the pod or not, but I think you and I agreed. We were like, if they win 6 games this year, it's a good, solid step forward for the franchise, considering what's going on there. I think that's within grasp right now, winning 6 games, no doubt.
Should be. I mean, look, I don't think they're going to beat the Bills on Thursday, but there was a couple weeks ago I was like, oh my goodness, they're ruining Thanksgiving again. And now I'm like, hey, they're kind of frisky right now. Like, I don't think they're going to win, but I think they keep it close. I really do. I think that this team
I don't know,
has just found some confidence that they just didn't have earlier in the season. I don't know. I think a lot of that maybe is Campbell. Like I got on him a few weeks ago. Like this team seemed to fold tent a lot when things went bad. Well, now they're not. This was an impressive win. Anything to say about the Giants? I just think they are what they are. They're going to make the playoffs because they already got 7 wins in the bag and they got 7 games to go. This is not a good team. Daniel Jones is not a great player. They need some help. Wan'Dale Robinson went down with a knee injury, and he was one of the few guys that he balled out today. He was really, really good. After I benched him in fantasy, by the way. Thank you. That was smart. But I mean, they don't have anything right now, but they're still winning games. But I think we all knew that this kind of performance was clearly in the realm of possibilities, just because they're not that great.
Come on, look, if you hold Barkley to 1.5 yards a carry. Okay. And it's not a situation, especially if it's not a situation where, hey, he only got 7 carries, never really got a chance to get going. No, I mean, if this guy gets upwards, I think in this game he touched it 15 times for 22 yards.
Yeah, 15 carries, 22. That's good defense because he'd been awesome before this. And everybody knows he's getting a ball. It's not like, oh, the Detroit Lions focused on stopping Saquon. You know what everybody else does too. They just executed it well. And this defense that we were laughing about a month ago, not too bad. Shut down the Packers, shut down the Giants for whatever that's worth. They ain't bad.
Yeah, Kirby Joseph. The pick on Rodgers. Rodgers straight up was like, that kid made a good play. You see some of the young guys, Aiden Hutchinson, another interception, secondary, and it was good. It was a really good interception.
They dropped him in zone, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But he drops in zone and makes a great play.
If you go back and watch it in slow motion, it's amazing because he didn't back out immediately. He really took like 2 steps in, like he made it look like he's coming. And you watch the left tackle drops, just like the left tackle's supposed to drop, and then boom, he turned around and he knew what he was doing the whole way. Like he was like, I'm bailing. I know right where the ball's going to go. Caught it perfectly. I think he had a fumble recovery in this one. He's been, he's showing the signs that you got to show when you're drafted where he was drafted. So definitely I think Detroit, they're taking some steps forward. I think they're buying patience. I think they should be awarded some patience given what's going on. The Giants, we've said all along, they've probably still got a lot of work to do. There's no question.
Yeah, I think
The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 37-30. It's a team, especially offensively. Look, Mixon goes out in this game with concussion, right? So that really worries me because they have looked fantastic when they've been balanced. I just look at this team and I'm like, it's going to. There's not going to be a lot of teams defensively. Jamar Chase has got to come back. He's supposedly off crutches. Looks like there's a chance he could come back next week. T. Higgins has been really, really good in his absence, especially this game. Was an extremely good player. I mean, he's a 1, right? Like he's probably 1 on other teams. That's what he looked like to me. And
I'd agree. He's top 15 receiver.
Yeah. So you got 2 top 15 receivers once Jamar Chase comes back, hopefully healthy. But defensively, I think I was a little surprised. Although, look, Burrow turned it over in this game. He's had those games where he has a spate of turnovers. I guess it was just one of those games where I'm like, okay, you're probably lucky you're playing Pittsburgh right now because if you turn it over like this and Mixon goes out with concussion and you don't have Jamar Chase and you're playing, I don't know.
Ravens.
I mean, Ravens, maybe Tennessee, there's not a lot of teams you're going to beat in the playoffs when things like this line up.
Yeah, it took them a while. It took them a while to put them away. And for a while, you're like, wow, the Steelers going to do this? Like, TJ Watt makes a unbelievable interception. This is the second time he's done that to Burrow, too. Like, I can't even comprehend, like, the athleticism involved to make an interception like that, where most guys just bat that down, and TJ Watt's just picking them out of midair. Just crazy how much of an impact he makes on the Steelers. They played well in this game. Kenny Pickett played well. Kenny Pickett showed some things. I thought he was perfectly competent. George Pickens is a real deal. He's a very, very good player. So I think, you say, yeah, they're lucky they were playing Pittsburgh. In some ways, that's true. But in some ways, this is a pretty good win for the Bengals because the Steelers played well, I thought. Like, yeah, they're not there yet. They still have a lot of holes. We all know that. But I thought the Steelers played as well as they could, and Cincinnati still put up 37 on them and won the game. That's a good win. Like, look, for years and years and years, the Bengals didn't win those games. They were the team that everybody got right against. They were the team that everybody said, oh, you're lucky to be playing the Bengals this week where you didn't play your A game and you can still win. Now the Bengals are that team that, look, they're in the playoff hunt. They're still in the hunt for the division, especially the Ravens looking kind of shaky today. It was good. It was a good win for the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought that overall they played well. And like you said, I assume Mixon will be back soon, if not next week. I assume Chase will be back soon, and that just gives them an extra dimension. This is a Bengals team that can still get on a roll. I don't know what happened to them against the Browns a couple weeks ago. That Monday night, it was awful. Like, it was one of the worst performances I've seen. But other than that, they've been a really, really good football team this year. Let's move it on to the Atlanta Falcons 27, Chicago Bears 24. I think first of all, the story of this game, Justin Fields makes some plays again, runs well, suffers an injury, looks pretty bad. He was in a lot of pain with that left shoulder. We'll see where that goes. I'd hate to see him miss time when he's on a roll like this, but kind of as you talked about with Hurts, with Allen, when you're putting so much of an offense on a quarterback, and especially in a running game, you're putting him out there for a lot of hits, and he took some in this game. But I think other than the injury, one thing that I want to see in Justin Fields' progression, he's played great and he's made plays and he's been really exciting. He's had 3 straight opportunities to take his team down in the last 2 minutes and win the game, or tie the game at least. He's failed 3 straight times in a row. That's something he has to progress. That is a skill. That is something he needs to show. Like, I could go do this. Even against Washington. Yeah, he drove him down to the end, but he couldn't punch it in. It hasn't happened for him yet in the last couple minutes, and that is one of the things that separates good quarterbacks and great ones. We haven't seen that from Justin Fields yet.
He definitely has to make, I think 2 things got to happen. Number one, as the Bears continue to build this, I do think whether it's through the draft and organically, or whether it's like the Howie Roseman, Chris Greer thing with Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown, he's going to need a dude eventually. Like, no offense to Darnell Mooney, no offense to Montgomery. I don't know. There's some Cole Kmet people out there.
He's okay. He's fine.
He's fine. But I mean, look, and especially in those drives, those 2-minute drives, you need a like, look at Mahomes, you need a Kelce. You need somebody this is my dude. This is who I can count on. He lacks that right now. I am more concerned with the progression of getting him out of what was the early sort of Jalen Hurts mold in Philly, which he ran the ball 18 times today. And the shoulder injury, I'm with you. I hate it. Even guys that are as dynamic as he is, there's, there are a couple guys in the league who can do this. And like, between Hurts, obviously Lamar Jackson, don't like to see them putting a lot of mileage on their bodies running the football, no matter how dynamic they are, because things like this ultimately happen. So I feel like he's early stages Hurts. Might have a better tool set, honestly. Like, I mean, in terms of the arm and the speed, because I feel like he does have a gear that maybe those other 2 guys don't. But yeah, I don't know, man. They just need it. How about the Falcons? You want to give the Falcons any love?
Hey, Cordarrelle Patterson, man. What a weird career he's had. He sets he kickoff. Is such a good kickoff returner. He's so good. He's just it's like he shot out of a cannon. I still take Devin Hester over CPAT as the greatest returner I've ever seen, but Cordarrelle Patterson's up there, and what a weird career he's had. He looked like he was bummer. An absolute total bust.
It's a
right?
Bummer.
Like, he's a first-round pick, he's whatever, and then takes him till he's about 30, until somebody figures out how to use him correctly, basically as a running back. But he's always had that kickoff returner excellence, no matter what was going on with him in an offense. He's always been able to return the heck out of the ball. Fun player. Glad to see him have get the record, have success late in his career, really become a well-rounded player. Other than that, Atlanta, look, I guess they're still in this NFC South, right? Like, the NFC South is terrible. I don't really know kind of if they can hang in, but good win for them. It's just a win you got to get. Like, you got to beat the Bears if you want to be taken seriously and stay relevant this season. They got it done, but no, not much is happening. I guess I will, Kyle Pitts looked like he suffered a pretty bad knee injury. I hope that's not bad. Not that they're using him this year in any way, but he's a really, really exciting, young, talented player who maybe this year wasn't working out for him, but next year would have. Well, ACL injury might set that back. So I hope it's not that. I hope it's just kind of a minor thing, and he's back very soon.
Yeah, I feel like they got to. Marcus Mariota, I think, has been fine. It's been just a solid bridge quarterback, but that's what he is. I really think they got to figure out. Like, you got Drake London, you got Pitts. Probably not going to have Patterson for your next quarterback for very long, but I think they got to start to, it's important that they make that transition now. And all due respect to Marcus Mariota, who now, kind of watching him do this, I'm like, he's going to be a guy who sticks around the league probably 15 years as sort of a backup spot starter. Oh, he'll be a bridge for a year at times, but he'll have a nice long career and probably make a lot of money. Okay, make a commitment. And if it's Desmond Ridder, fine, it's Desmond Ridder, whatever it is.
But they keep winning these games. It's almost like it's.
But it's not sustainable. This is not sustainable. But
what I'm saying is, how are they going to get a quarterback? They're not going to be in a position to draft one that's any more than a project, really. And I know this draft is pretty deep at quarterback, so maybe get one.
Sacrifice if you take whatever first round pick you have this year, package it with a second and next year's first, move up whenever you see the guy drop to where he needs to drop. I mean, look Kansas City. Like, Kansas City figured out a way to do it, right? When they saw Mahomes, they were in that velvet rut.
Chicago did too.
Yeah, Chicago figured out a way to do it. Like, when you see your guy, it sucks. You gotta sacrifice future capital, but I didn't hear the Chiefs bitching about that. Like, I think they were completely fun.
No, you're right. I think it's worth it. I'm just saying, like, it's almost this catch-22 where every win they get is just putting them further and further away from the quarterback they really kind of need for the future.
All right, let's move on. The Buffalo Bills in Detroit. Hell of a crowd, by the way. The Buffalo Bills in Detroit.
It kind of was, right? Yeah, like, there's a lot of people. I was like, how these people get out of Buffalo? There's like 28 feet of snow on the ground.
That's what I'm like. And not only that, I'm sitting there and I'm like, Cleveland's closer geographically than Detroit is. And yet it was the Bills fans who were like, screw it. This is a home game for us. We're going to make sure we get there. But I thought the same thing that you did is I'm like, wait a minute, like, what the hell? Like, it was like, we can't have the game in Buffalo because we'll endanger the fans. So instead, we're going to endanger the fans by having them drive to Detroit for the game there instead. Like, yeah, it was them getting out. We got to get to the game, but them getting out was such a wild, like, people shoveling for players, trying to get them out of their houses, the snowmobile, just everything about it. I thought them leaving on Saturday, I was like, man, I don't know.
When they didn't leave Friday, I'm like, what? We knew Tuesday I was writing about, hey, they're probably going to move this game to Detroit because they're getting 6 feet of snow in Buffalo. Like, and the NFL's like, we'll figure it out later. That's fine. Well, Bills are like, we're going to leave on Saturday. We're not in a rush. I'm actually a little bit surprised that they ended up making this game. I was worried for a second there.
Yeah, I didn't. On the Saturday departure, I was like, especially because it was like, wasn't like, hey, Saturday morning, they're on the plane and they're getting out. It was like, oh, they're trying to get out. I'm like, I don't know if you're seeing these pictures. And I kind of ripped it too until the Bills put up, like, here's what the inside of the stadium looks like. I was like, oh shit, that's a lot of snow, man. Like,
yeah, you ain't playing on that. By the way, I'll say this. I think it was the 97 Broncos. Famously, they won their first Super Bowl in franchise history. They had a similar deal where they had this massive snowstorm. They needed guys in snowmobiles and digging out. I think like Jason Elam needed to be picked up by somebody. And all those guys I covered the Broncos for a long time, so I know a lot of those guys in that team. They all talked about how that really kind of brought them together a little bit. You dealt with some adversity just to get out of town. Yeah. It kind of was a chemistry thing after a while. They went, I believe they won the game. I can't remember where they were going, but they got out of Denver. Maybe this happens for the Bills. I don't know. That's all very narrative street, and you can make a story out of, oh yeah, the Bills won a Super Bowl because of this blizzard. I don't know if that's real or not, but the fact that they dealt with a lot this week, and there was a lot of sickness on that team too, like literal illness. A lot of those guys were sick on Wednesday, I believe, missing practice and stuff. For them to battle through this adversity, lose a home game, which they did, go on the road and win a game pretty convincingly against the Browns was, hey,
really
good for you, Buffalo. I mean, that was and for a while it didn't look so. They started off really slow and flat, and you were like, oh, this might not be good for them. I think they were down 7-0. Amari Cooper's running through the secondary. They got it together, played really well. I thought it was interesting, something you've talked about all season, and I pushed back a little bit on it, but they were balanced in this game. This was not the Josh Allen show. This was, Josh Allen throws for 197, only 27 passing attempts, but they just kept running the ball. James Cook looked really good. Their rookie. Yeah. Devin Singletary's been solid all year. They really ran the ball well in this game, and I wonder if that's a sign of things to come. I don't know that they back off Josh Allen too much because he's a great player, but this was kind of what you've talked about. Kind of, if Buffalo wants to win a Super Bowl, you got to have two dimensions on offense. You can't just have the one.
Well, go watch their red zone possessions and you see it like that. I was like, okay, this is what we talk, like getting the play calling and then also Josh to just rein it a little bit, especially if things are breaking your way. If you've got control of the tempo, if you're controlling the line of scrimmage, just go ahead and do your thing. Like you don't have to, you don't have to get wild. You don't have to gun it. Just play into the tempo of the game when you're in the red zone. Don't commit turnovers. That's what they did in this game. And it wasn't as close, by the way, as the 31-23 score suggests.
No, I'll just say this. They control this game.
Yeah, I'll just say this real quick, and then you can kick it to the next game. The Browns, defensive coordinator is not going to be there next year. I'm confident of that. I think the front seven on defense probably gets retooled. If they don't win next week against Tampa, it's over. Like it's just, they're going to hand off a team to Deshaun Watson, and it's just going to be about measuring how he fits and who fits with him and how he and Kevin Stefanski can work together. I don't think I know fans are pissed off at Stefanski. There have been times like this game, they quarterback, there was a situation, it was like 3rd and 1, quarterback sneak, they lose a yard. And then they sneak it again on 4th and 2. And
yeah.
I was just like, dude, what are we doing? Like, come on, man. Like, this is like, it was very frustrating. So I think Stefanski sticks. Okay. Number one.
Oh yeah.
I don't think there's any question.
Are people talking otherwise about that?
Oh yeah. I think fans are just pissed off about Stefanski. They're pissed off about Paul DePodesta. I call it like Broncos light. There was so much expectation on this season. They thought we're going to hold the fort. We're going to hand it off to Deshaun, and Deshaun's going to take us to the playoffs, and everything's going to be great, and we've resolved it with a quarterback. Has not gone that way. But I do think they're going to get one thing they want. The defensive coordinator, I don't think is going to. I'm just telling you, defensive coordinator is not going to be there, and like I said, I think they'll work really hard on retooling the front seven of the defense. I think they feel pretty good about where that offense is. And then now it's just going to be measuring how does Deshaun fit with Stefanski and what kind of, what's the game look like when they call it and everything. So you can find Frank on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. You can get me at Charles Robinson. You can get Brett Rader, our ace producer, at Brett Rader. Send him some love, soothe his feelings over his Denver Broncos. Make sure you check out the mothership at Yahoo Sports. And if you could, please help us keep Therese Paylor's legacy alive. Check out Breaking Tea. That's capitalT.com/Therese for the all juice tea or hoodie. You can also support the Trez A. Paylor Scholarship at Howard University, which when you buy a tea, the proceeds go to that scholarship. You can donate to that directly if you check out our podcast description, as well as the scholarship in Trez's name at Power Mizzou. Leave us some 5-star reviews. Tell a friend. Grow the pod. We appreciate it. We've had a decent growth this year. 50, I don't know, Brett, I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling people this, but like a 50% growth in streams this year, which is
wow.
Pretty nice. Pretty happy about that. Anyway, help us grow the pod. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll be back Wednesday night with a new episode. Talk to you then. Peace.